Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles, the Friday podcast all about your Kindle. I'm Len Edgerly. Today is June 8th, 2018. Greetings from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I'm actually at my daughter's house, just in the backyard from our house, babysitting the grandsons, Jake and Ryan. I can see them on the baby monitor here. Ryan just moved around a little. I have a nice black and white view of them, which I'm sure many of you may remember from baby monitors, or maybe you're watching baby monitors as parents. Kind of a fun thing. I interviewed my guest this week, the author Jade Chang, while we were up in Ocean Park, Maine a few days ago. Darlene and I were staying in the summer cottage during a chilly spell that saw temperatures fall to the 40s at night with no heat. It was bracing. And so was my conversation with an author whose essay is part of a collection of original Amazon stories about love. The collection is titled The Real Thing, and it represents the type of innovation Amazon Publishing is well known for, but that Jade Chang thinks the rest of the industry is also aiming at.
I think that everyone's sort of realizing that, you know, just putting out a hardcover book that in the exact same way isn't going to always work.
Also this week, you won't need an invitation anymore if you'd like some Amazon fashion advice to compare two of your outfits. A best-selling author decides to skip ebooks and print books for distribution of his next narrative, and Amazon announces a new Cube housing Alexa and Fire TV. First up in news, you may remember a surprising device that Amazon released more than a year ago named the Echo Look. You had to get an invitation in order to pay $200 to buy one. Listener Garrett Riley generously made his invitation available to me a year ago, and I tried it a few times. It was cool, and there is one orange checked shirt from LL Bean that I never wore again after the style check convincingly preferred a similar green one. Unfortunately, I have misplaced the Echo Look that I bought somewhere in Darlene's and my migrations between here and Cambridge and Denver. I've looked everywhere in both houses, and I just can't find the darn thing. So I may have to buy another one now that the invitation-only requirement has been lifted and anyone can purchase one. I thought I had a line on interviewing someone at Amazon who's from their fashion department that's heavily involved in the look, but I haven't heard back. The trail's gone kind of dry on that one. But now that the look is available for anyone to purchase, I may just try to follow up and make sure that I can get that interview to happen. They had an ad where this woman was talking about how fashion people and tech people are working together at Amazon, and two very different tribes, and it was a very cute little video that was walking through the area where these people are working. They've obviously been working pretty hard for the past year, so I'm going to try to revive my effort to get that person on the show. As I said, Amazon has been busy this past year of limited release of the look. A press release issued this week said Style Check will now suggest items that pair well with clothes you already own, and recommended items are all available at Amazon. No surprise there. I think it also says that when you compare two bits of clothing, it won't just say which one it prefers, but it will say why. Is it one's a better fit, one's a better color, one's more in style? So I think they're beefing up the information that you get when you use this device to compare two different outfits. I think that there was an Echo Look app for iPhone and Android when the product was first launched, but that app seems to have been expanded and improved. You can take what Amazon calls daily look photos or short videos of your outfits and save them for future reference. I have to say that when I get dressed in the morning, I never consider what I'm wearing to be an outfit. Usually it's just the pants I wore yesterday paired with a new shirt, usually blue. Darlene, who does think in terms of outfits and always looks very sharp, expressed less than zero interest in getting advice from Amazon's AI or humans about which of two outfits look better. I doubt her opinion has changed in the past year. Also new with the Look is the ability to get fashion advice from other customers via community voting by the Amazon Spark community. That's a kind of a social media forum that I sometimes glance at using my Amazon iPhone app. The release says I can take a look photo of 2 outfits, that word again, and ask the community of fashion lovers which is better for a summer wedding, or is this appropriate for a job interview? By waiting a full year before general release, I'm sure Amazon has learned a lot about its kind of odd innovation, the Echo Look. The release quotes rave reviews from the Today Show. Quote, for anyone who needs a little help deciding what to wear, Style Check is a total game changer. And USA Today, quote, I fell in love with the tiny piece of tech. The smartest thing about the Look, in my view, is the way it enables you to take a selfie without holding your phone at arm's length. And it also blurs the background and provides perfect lighting for a pretty decent fashion shot in your own home. You just say, Alexa, take a photo, or Alexa, take a video, and a fashionable image of you appears on your phone and in the Amazon cloud. It's driving me crazy that I can't find that original Echo Look, but I'm glad I can order another one now that without having an invitation. Next in news is another indication that audiobooks are the new darling of publishing. Michael Lewis, the author of smash bestsellers like Liar's Poker and Moneyball, has decided to test the idea for his new book in a 10,000-word piece that will be available only as an audiobook via Audible. Lewis told Alexandra Alter of the New York Times, you're not going to be able to read it, you are only going to be able to listen to it. I've become Audible's first magazine writer. Lewis last month signed a multi-year contract with Audible for 4 audio original stories, with the first scheduled to come out in July. He plans to narrate it himself, he told the Times, but he declined to reveal any details about the story. Alter's excellent piece gives a good overview of just how strong the audiobook sector has become and how dominant Amazon's Audible unit is within it. Traditional publishers have participated in this booming sector. Hachette, for example, has doubled the number of audiobooks it produces and will release about 700 titles this year. Penguin Random House has 15 recording studios. But publishing guru Michael Cater is quoted in the article as saying, Amazon's position in the digital audio market is even more dominant and unshakable than its position was in the ebook market. They're virtually unchallenged. They got an early start. They bought Audible quite a while ago, many years ago, and have invested in it. Donald Katz has done a passionate job remaining on as the CEO. So there was a long time of investing and building that Audible platform to the point where when listening to books becomes more and more suitable to the modern lifestyle, here they all are, ready with fantastic content and high quality, ready to reap the benefits of that shift in how people are listening or taking in stories. I noted with interest that the Amazon executive heading up Audible's original content operation is David Blum, who took a job at Amazon in 2010 to become the first editor of Kindle Singles. He then moved to editor-in-chief and publisher of Little A Books, that's Amazon Publishing's literary imprint, and he was named editor-in-chief of Audible Original Publishing in September of 2016. He's been on the show a couple of times, and I'd say it's time to have him back so that he can tell us what he's been up to at Audible. My own listening to audiobooks is sharply constrained by the fact that I don't have a daily commute. I don't do much driving. When I listen to audio material at night, when I'm getting ready for bed, I usually check other podcasts rather than listen to a book that would take me at least 6 months to finish in such small time windows that I have available. So I feel I'm sort of missing out on this wave. And in truth, I think I still prefer reading a book on my Kindle or a phone than listening to one. Call me old-fashioned, I guess. That said, I am very curious to see what Michael Lewis will be releasing via Audible next month, and I will no doubt give that a listen. Also this week, Amazon announced an all-new gadget named the Fire TV Cube. that has Alexa and Fire TV, and they share kind of an iconic-looking black cube that reminds me of the Next computer that Steve Jobs developed after he'd been kicked out of Apple. The Fire TV Cube is available for pre-order, and it will ship on June 21st. I pre-ordered one yesterday at the special Prime member price of $90. That's a $30 savings from the non-Prime price of $120. I think that $90 price is only available today, June 8th. So depending on when I get the show up, you might still have time to take advantage of that price. And obviously, if you click on the link at the show notes, thekindlechronicles.com, there'll be a benefit for Amazon Associates commissions. The Cube is a streaming media player with Alexa. From across the room, you can ask Alexa to turn on the TV, dim the lights, and play what you want to watch. In a video at Amazon.com describing the marvels of the Cube, one of the voices that you're going to hear is a young father who's kind of cradling a sleeping infant in both arms, which means he doesn't have any hands free, but because of this new device, he can still control his TV with the Cube. Here's the audio.
It's time to start reimagining TV. Introducing Fire TV Cube, the first all-in-one streaming media player with hands-free Alexa built in. Now it's easy to do things like this.
Alexa, turn on the TV.
Fire TV Cube can hear you from across the room.
Alexa, play Sneaky Pete.
And with infrared technology, it's easier to control your entertainment hands-free.
Alexa, switch to cable.
Wait, what time was the game?
Alexa, tune to Fox.
We've partnered with Netflix, ESPN, Hulu, and others to let you do more simply by using your voice.
Alexa, rewind 30 seconds.
Alexa, next episode.
Plus, Fire TV Cube is always getting smarter.
Alexa, show my flash briefing.
So now it's easier to get more out of the biggest screen in your house.
Alexa, show me nearby restaurants.
Even when your TV is off, Alexa is ready to help.
Alexa, add Pinot Noir to my shopping list.
Okay, I've added it to your list.
And of course, you can still enjoy all the content you love.
Alexa, search for action movies.
Yes! From HBO, Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, and more. Fire TV Cube. Let's start reimagining TV.
The Cube has its own speaker, so you can use it like an Echo Show, Spot, or other Alexa device, even if the TV is not on. With the TV on, you will hear Alexa through the TV's sound system. There are some things that Fire TV Cube cannot do. They include Alexa calling and messaging, multi-room music, and Bluetooth connections to mobile phones. When you activate your Fire TV Cube, you will receive a $10 Prime Video credit. The part of Fire TV Cube that I have difficulty grasping is how it works as a universal remote for set-top boxes, TVs, and other devices. There's a very good article in The Verge about this by Chris Welch, who had a chance to try a Cube and interview Sandeep Gupta, Amazon's VP of Smart TV and Home Products. Do I need a Fire TV Cube? Nope, but I can't wait to try it out. Time now for the interview. Jade Chang is the author of The Wangs versus the World, her debut novel published by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt in 2016. She has worked as an arts and culture journalist and was an editor at Goodreads. She's one of the first employees at Goodreads, she told me. Her first paying job after college was as a researcher for the J. Peterman catalog. I didn't remember this, but that's apparently where Elaine worked on Seinfeld. It's a real place. Jade is the winner of the VCU Cabal First Novelist Award and a nominee of the Penn Robert W. Bingham Prize for Debut Fiction. She lives in Los Angeles, where I reached her this week by Skype to talk about her essay, The List. It's one of 6 stories about love in a new Amazon Original Stories bundle titled The Real Thing. I began by asking her how she came to write a lengthy piece about people making lists of characteristics they dream of in their perfect partner.
So Amazon asked me to write an essay about love, and since I'm not generally one for writing a lot of super personal essays, I it made me really think about this thing that gets recommended a lot. If anyone knows that you're single, at least in LA, this has been my experience, people will often ask, "Oh my God, have you made the list?" And the list that they're talking about is, the theory is that if you make a list of everything that you really want in another person, and then, just sort of either put it away or maybe even do a little bit of magic of some sort with it, then it'll come true. And that person will just walk right into your life.
That's a wonderful thought.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so the essay itself is about kind of the examination. It kind of examines that idea and why it's so appealing and other forms of magical list making throughout the ages.
So Amazon approached you with a very general topic. They just said, write us something about love.
They did. Yeah.
What other things did you consider and reject before settling on the list?
That really was at the top of my mind because it is, I think I've always just thought it was so fascinating that people put so much belief into it.
Is it fairly new in LA, or when did you first hear about it?
I've been hearing about it forever. I would say that, it has its roots in other forms of magical list making. I would say that you also see it a lot kind of in the self-help world. You see it a lot in the world of kind of tech gurus who have this write it down, make it happen kind of philosophy. It's definitely, I wouldn't say it's a new thing.
Yeah. But it's really caught fire in the romance department, it sounds like.
I think it has.
And as part of your research, you mentioned that you read a lot of testimonials of people that said, I made the list, and then here's what happened. I mean, did you read hundreds of these or thousands, or what sort of array of these testimonials did you end up reading?
Not thousands. I mean, I think I kind of got the picture after I would say scores, perhaps close to hundreds would be more accurate. But really, there are a lot of them. And I've also come across a lot of people just in my life who really swear by it as well.
Do people ever write accounts where they made the list and it didn't happen, or they ended up with the wrong person and just disgruntled list makers?
I mean, I think part of it is this idea that you have to be truly honest with yourself about what it is that you want, And so if you kind of ask for something that you think you should want, or ask for something in kind of in a vague way, then you end up with a person that's maybe not actually your ideal mate.
So it's kind of a tool of self-awareness as well as possible magical powers.
Exactly.
How about the role that luck plays in true love? What's your assessment of whether you really can make progress in this area, or maybe a lot of it has to do with luck?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that it's kind of the biggest question of all, right? I mean, it's the question that everyone wants an answer to. I think that luck is everything, and I don't mean in like good luck, bad luck terms. I mean just in terms of pure chance. We don't like to think that the world is as chaotic and chance-based as I think it actually is. And so things like the list really help us feel like we have some kind of real control over our lives. And we do. I mean, obviously, I don't think that, we're fated for any kind of outcome. I think that we do make our own choices, but I also think that we make our own choices based on what kind of floats in or out of our lives. And, obviously if you just stay holed up at home and never speak to anyone, you're never going to meet anyone. Like, obviously that plays a part. But I do think that there's a reason that, for example, movies like Sliding Doors, that Gwyneth Paltrow movie from years ago, where you see the two different lives that she could have had, I think that those things are so those kinds of stories are so appealing to people because they kind of confirm what we know, that if you got to that party a minute earlier, you might have, met that person who had just left. Like, that could change your whole life. I do think that those things are really true. Yeah.
You write about an experience of publishing your debut novel in 2016 as having some of that quality to it. What do you recall about the sense of synchronicity or things happening that led to your novel being published and then actually to quite a bit of acclaim? Yeah,
I think there were a few things. I think that I had written another book before that actually I sent out to agents. It didn't get picked up immediately, but I had already started writing this book, The Wangs versus the World, and I sort of felt like, all right, I'm going to put that first book aside. I'm just going to concentrate on this book. It took me years and years longer than I thought it would, but it turned out that timing was actually pretty good. It felt like just the kind of reading landscape out there. It felt like it was a welcoming place for my book in a way that it might not have been, 5 years ago. But I think also in terms of meeting my agent, so for people who don't know, when you write a novel, you have to first get an agent, and then the agent sends it to publishers. And in order to find an agent, you write a query letter and send it out to people. And it just so happened that my agent was he was on a flight going to South by Southwest. My letter happened to hit the top of his inbox when he was getting off the plane. So he was, he's standing in that line waiting for the doors to open. It just happened to be the first one there. He gets so many requests, and I think he probably doesn't read all of them because there's just so many of them. And so even that kind of chance, I think really changed things for me. I do think that I would have found someone else. I would have sold the book, but I do think that that felt really kind of like a big stroke of luck for sure. Yeah.
What's that story about? The story of the novel? It's a great title, The Wangs versus the World.
Thank you. The novel is about a family that it's set in the late summer of 2008. So it's set during the financial crisis. We're almost at the Obama election. And it's about a family in Bel Air that loses their fortune. And then they have to drive cross country to kind of reunite the family. And it's about a lot of different things. It's about finance world, beauty world, art world. It also really was a chance for me to kind of think about America in all different ways. Yeah.
And how much of it was autobiographical? The things that you'd actually did you anybody in your family get taken down by the crash, and you were working off personal knowledge of how devastating that could be, and also how funny?
Devastation does become funny sometimes. It's true. No, we never had a cosmetics fortune to lose for that, for sure. But the family background, the background of the family in the book of the Wangs is similar to my family's background. So my parents are both from families that had sort of owned land in China for generations, and then because of the rise of communism, the Japanese invasion, etc., they all kind of lost everything and had to flee China and go to Taiwan. And then they grew up with that sense of the world that they had lost, and that is something that really drives Charles Wang, who's the father in the book, that sense of what he's lost in the world.
I started reading the sample, and just from the reviews, I could tell it's a witty, sly, funny book. It's really sort of hilarious the way it starts out. And was that part of your vision of telling that story? Is the humor and the satire in it, or did that just kind of naturally flow as you were following these characters through their adventures?
Well, I think that with humor, you can tell so many more truths than you can without it. You know, I think you can make that like much more palatable to people. And I think also, I also definitely wanted to write a different kind of immigrant novel. You know, I wanted to write an immigrant novel that wasn't just this kind of tale of pain, which is something that we've seen a lot of. And I think the humor definitely was helpful in that respect as well.
Well, now you're part of this interesting innovation that Amazon Publishing's come up with. They're calling it a bundle. They're calling it a collection.
Yeah.
It's sort of odd because when I downloaded it to my Kindle, it actually downloaded as 6 separate ebooks, and it used up
does.
6 kind of berths in my Kindle Unlimited. And they explained that that's, you know, by design. You're one of 6 authors in a collection about love in the modern world, sort of. What was your experience of going through that creation process in kind of an unusual publishing project?
It was really fun. I really enjoyed working with my editor, Barry Harbaugh, who was great. It was really fun to kind of think through, you know, it's unusual to write something of this length.
How many words did it end up being, roughly?
My essay is around 7,000 words. And that's, you know, when you read, generally when you read an essay in a magazine or something like that, you're often talking like 2,000 or 3,000 words. I mean, obviously there are longer and shorter ones, but, and then a novel, just for reference, like The Great Gatsby, for example, is 50,000 words. So it's kind of a mid ground. It was interesting to work at that length. And it was interesting to know that it was kind of part of a grouping of stories, because I knew that it would, you know, I knew that there would be things that represented a bunch of different viewpoints about love and a bunch of different kinds of love.
Did you know who would be writing the other stories when you started and what they would be about?
I knew a couple of them. I think I was one of the earlier people to sign on, but I did know, I knew a couple of them. And also, I loved that they had Jeff McFetridge do the design. I've always been a fan, and it was so fun to have kind of these little animations in there.
They're wild. You know, there's 3 of them in your story. The one I sort of love the most, there's a reference to Cheetos.
That is my favorite one as well. Yeah.
Will describe it. What is his drawing to illustrate your well? And I don't know if you remember the reference to Cheetos. It's something about, where does that come from? How does that make its way into the book or into the piece?
Okay, so let's see. The Cheetos reference comes up because I'm describing a sort of very kind of magical feeling night, and I talk about how, you know, it's true that we're all made of stardust, which is, you know, technically correct, but it also means that every single other thing in the world is also made of stardust, including, you know, hot Cheetos. And Jeff definitely took a little bit of creative license. He in the illustration, it's a woman with a kind of a mask on the back of her head, and she's speaking to a man, but then her actual, you know, the front part of her head is eating Cheetos. I would like to say that I have never deceived anyone about Cheeto consumption.
Meaning that you have consumed Cheetos, or you have not?
Oh, sure. But also, I would never hide it, is what I'm saying.
I see.
Yes.
Well, it was so subtle because it's a black and white sort of line drawing, and the only color that comes is when the figure reaches in to the bag and pulls out, and the Cheeto is yellow. It's like this little blob of gold.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Were you able to work with him as he was creating the Kindle in Motion animations that were going to be part of your story?
No, we didn't actually. They told me that he was doing it. I expressed a great deal of enthusiasm, and then I didn't actually work with him on the drawings at all. We just saw them afterwards. But
how about the cover? Did you get a chance to see different versions of the cover?
No, I did not.
You were pleased with it?
I was. I thought it was really cute. I thought it was a clever way to do it. But you know what I think is interesting is that if you look at the items on the list on that cover, and also on the drawing where the girl is standing like inside a room and there's writing on the walls, those are not exactly any of the lists that are in the essay. So I feel like they're a good reflection of what's inside the illustrator's mind.
You also recorded the audiobook version of it, correct?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, that was really fun. I have to say that was probably my favorite part of the whole thing. As any writer knows, writing can be kind of miserable, but when you finish writing the thing and you just get to record the audiobook, it's really fun. I had never done it before. I sat in on the audiobook recording of my novel, and I realized just how difficult and kind of physically punishing it is. But luckily this was pretty short, so it wasn't quite as crazy. I recorded it at the studio in LA, where apparently they recorded a bunch of the old Westerns, like all the old radio shows with like Tom Mix and
Lone Ranger and
yeah.
Oh, what a riot!
So that was pretty fun. And then I don't know, it's just always exciting to get the chance to do something new and unfamiliar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I've thought must be challenging when an author reads the audiobook version, you naturally sort of change things as you go because as you're saying them, but that's a real problem because they have this
they have that sync.
The sync. And if you're reading along and all of a sudden the audiobook is saying something different than what's on the page, it's pretty jarring. But they probably coach you to not do any extemporizing.
Yeah, there were a couple of times where I think, in my subconscious mind, I was like, wait, why did I make that grammatical choice instead of this other one? And I would kind of change it, and they stopped me. And
so they did kind of enforce a word-by-word reading of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a chance to read the other 5 stories in the collection yet so far?
I have not, but only because I'm actually going on a long drive tomorrow, and so I've been saving them so I can listen to them all on audio tomorrow. So, yeah.
It seems like maybe all of the authors recorded their own audiobook versions. Is that right?
They did.
I think that's so smart, particularly given the personal nature of these stories, to actually hear the stories. I'll tell you, the one that blew me away, which you'll hear, is the one that's a transgender story where a guy becomes a woman, then he falls in love with a woman, and I've never seen it handled that well. It was just it wasn't hiding from anything, but it just totally opened my eyes to something I knew nothing about. And
good! I'm really excited. I'm excited to listen to that one.
I think you'll enjoy that one for sure. Now, going back to the novel, I mean, New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice designation, a lot of other impressive praise. Knowing that debut novel has been as successful as it has been, if you knew when you wrote it that it was going to have that kind of visibility and acclaim, would you have left anything out or put anything in that you didn't because you didn't know what would become of your debut novel when you're writing it, and now that it's out in the world and it's getting a certain buzz to it, I wonder if that leaves you with anything you wish you'd done differently in the writing of it.
That's an interesting question. I think that when you're writing a novel, you have to. It's like you have to see it in 2 ways. You have to see it as a potential thing that everyone's going to read, and you also have to acknowledge the possibility that no one will ever read it. And there's a saying, all artists have to kill their parents, figuratively, not literally,
right.
But I do think it's true. You have to sort of decide that you don't care what anyone else is going to think about it. I mean, obviously there are certain, I never want to hurt anyone or in any real way, but in terms of like, say, writing a sex scene, I think you just have to decide that whatever, they're never going to see it, even if everyone will.
Yeah. Well, was there anything in the novel that ended up being difficult for your family, your parents, or anybody to read, or that you heard back from in a way that was challenging?
No, I mean, I think that they probably skipped over those scenes.
That's good. We'll just move through these passages.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's where it helps if it does get acclaim, because when something is praised in the New York Times, I think the family's tolerance for what's in it increases with the level of acclaim.
Yeah.
I did that. I'm the one that did that to my child. But for that, there wouldn't have been this level of art. This was your first time working with Amazon Publishing?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Amazon and Amazon Publishing, so I've seen some of these Kindle Emotion and all the different things that they experiment with. Did anything that you learned in working with them make you more likely to publish with them for your next novel if you're not under contract, if you've got freedom under contracts, compared with Houghton Mifflin published your first novel, a more traditional publisher, Amazon carving out the space as being a more innovative publisher, especially when it comes to ebooks in terms of pricing and things like the animation. But I'm wondering if this is a way that Amazon Publishing kind of ends up recruiting an author like yourself for thinking, gee whiz, I've got a novel now, maybe I should call those folks.
That is an interesting theory. I think that I am definitely like pretty open to new ways of doing things. I think that that innovation is always exciting for me. I think that the definitely, especially what they did with the audiobook part, I think that I really, really loved. I do also think that I feel like they, and I admire the way that Amazon is kind of willing to push some of those things and willing to like try new things and dedicate resources to all of that. And I love the way that they put this together. And I also I feel like they're doing such a good job of kind of like packaging it with all the other authors and everything. In terms of with a novel, I mean, yeah, I'm not against it. I do feel like publishers, and I think we look at like the big five publishers or whatever as being kind of set in their ways and really traditional, but I actually think that everyone is kind of looking to try new things. I think that I think that everyone's sort of realizing that just putting out a hardcover book that in the exact same way isn't going to always work in a way that they would hope. So yeah, I think it's more that I'm just excited about like different ways of approaching storytelling for sure.
Yeah. What are you working on now? Your next new project?
Yeah. I'm working on a couple of things. I'm working mostly on a new novel. So, just kind of slowly writing that.
Is it more from the Wangs?
No, it's not from the Wangs, although I would say it's a similar vein. It's like a similar voice and all of that. It's also very much about, I think I'm always just really interested in writing about our present time.
Yeah.
So when I first started the Wangs, I started it in 2009, and it's very much about, the crisis that we had just gone through. And now I'm definitely very interested in writing about just all the crazy stuff that's happening in the world right now. Yeah.
That's a lot of material to try to get just into one novel. I have been speaking with Jade Chang, author of The List, an essay in the first Amazon Original Stories collection titled The Real Thing. Thanks very much, Jade.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
In content, I'm going to have a link to a very interesting overview of books that were the most frequently or densely highlighted books in Readwise. That's that terrific app that I've been using that brings me passages that I've highlighted in the books I've been reading in the past 10 years on kind of a random basis. Each day I get a digest of quotes that I actually highlighted, sometimes years ago, and I barely remember that I read the book. So this outfit, Daniel Doyen is the guy who I think is the head of it. I've communicated with him by email, and he has a blog post at blog.readwise.io titled, "What Books Are Highlighted the Most Densely?" Because their app is processing all of these highlights from a large number of readers, it's a deep dive into books to find out which books are causing the most engagement. He talks about, he identifies the top 5 most densely highlighted books. They are Sapiens, that's by Yuval Noah Harari, that's a book I've heard a lot about. The Lean Startup by Eric Rice, 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, Blake Masters, A Guide to the Good Life, William B. Irvine, and Tools of Titans by Timothy Ferriss. He slices and dices this information in lots of interesting ways. He's a good writer. This is a blog post that rewards some attention, and you'll find lots of books here that if you're looking for a book that you might find yourself highlighting a lot, you might get inspired by this list, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes at thekindlechronicles.com. I'd like to pass along a comment that I received from Szymon Schott in Poland. Hi, Len. I'm sure you've heard about the latest Kindle software update, which allows users to install custom fonts. I think the fonts Amazon provides really cover all the bases, so I don't see any reason to install my own. Is there any font you would like to read with? I'm perfectly happy with the choice of fonts at Amazon. I usually just use Bookerly. I think that's a really pleasant font. Shimon continues, regarding your question about styli, I never thought of using one for the Kindle. The surface is easy to highlight with a finger, better than on a phone or tablet, in my opinion. Can't wait for today's episode. Best regards, Shimon. I can see the difference there. The surface of the Kindle, I think, does feel more appropriate for my finger than the stylus compared with the other LCD screens, the iPhone and the tablet. So, but I do still prefer using a stylus on all of them at this point. Next week's guest will be Bradley Metrock, CEO of Score Publishing. That's the company doing an amazing job expanding and revitalizing the Digital Book World Conference, which is going to be held for the first time not in New York City. It'll be October 2nd through 4th in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going to participate on a panel at the workshop about podcasting. During the next month or so, you will probably be seeing a change in the appearance of the Kindle Chronicles show notes page. That's at thekindlechronicles.com. I have hired Flight New Media in Portland, Maine, to move my site to Libsyn from WordPress, and that's going to make preparation of the show take a lot less time each week, and I think it's going to look pretty good. I saw a mock-up of it at a meeting up in Portland a couple of days ago. I'm also planning to work with Flight's founder, Rich Brooks, to explore ways to expand the audience for the podcast. As I approach the 10-year anniversary of the first show on July 26th, it feels like an appropriate time to freshen up the look of the show's website and maybe reach out to more listeners. I'm not looking to make any more money, although the Amazon Associates commissions are beneficial. In fact, I'm using the increase in those commissions that I've noticed lately to pay for the work that Flight New Media is doing for me. So I really appreciate those of you that begin your Amazon shopping by clicking on that Amazon ad at thekindlechronicles.com, and some of you made a bookmark of it, so it's even easier to have your shopping benefit the show. Darlene has been finishing up a quilting workshop in Harpswell, Maine. She's been working on a beautiful big quilt, a mother and a baby giraffe, all in the bright colors that she always does. And so I think she's going to return home from this workshop with that quilt just about done. I've been continuing the edgeoftheroad.com podcast. We plugged the Tesla into the charging wall charger that we put on the outside of the cottage in Maine. So when we drove up there this week, I had my first chance to plug in the Tesla Model 3 at a home, and it was so much easier than having to drive around looking for charging stations. My parents, who will be celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary this coming week on June 12th, honeymooned up at Ocean Park, and they got there in a Model A they named Jezebel. So when I had the Tesla plugged into the cottage, I sent a picture to Dad, and I thought, isn't it remarkable that one man can see that much change in the technology of a car? I would have loved to have seen Jezebel and Tess side by side there at the old cottages.